That notification is in my dreams.
Yes.
Presentation will be only one slide. We'll just uninstall Adobe. All right. Well, thank you for coming out to the last session for today. Moving from Word to PDF and making it accessible. We have our three speakers from EOTS here today with us. That's a state agency. Ashley Bloom, she's the Chief IT Accessibility Officer, who specializes in oversight of accessibility policies, processes, standards, and strategies. We also have Adam Petronovich. He is the Accessibility Training Coordinator, specializing in accessibility training, multimedia accessibility, design reviews, and content reviews. And there's also Mindy Johnson, Documents and Communication Accessibility Coordinator, specializing in document accessibility, email accessibility, social media accessibility, and content reviews. So I'll hand it off to Mindy.
Hi, everyone. So welcome to learning how you've been using Word wrong. That's what this presentation is about. It's actually not about that, but you may feel like that during this presentation. It's okay. I do this kind of as a follow along. So if you have documents, Word documents that you are working on right now, feel free to bring them up. Bring them up on your phone, bring them up on your laptop, whatever you want to do, feel free to work along with me. Because we will be taking a Word document and making it an accessible PDF in this presentation together. So feel free to follow on. I won't necessarily be able to help you troubleshoot if something is going on with your document, so just keep that in mind. But that is something that you could absolutely bring to our office hours. So we hold office hours like twice a month, I think, for education specifically. And you can make an appointment. We'll send that link to you so you can do that. You can make an appointment. If you are having trouble with your document, or even if you do everything right in this session, you're like, wow, I totally forgot how to do that one thing. Feel free to come to office hours and we can help you. All right. So this is our agenda. So we're going to talk about text considerations. Some of that will be a little bit of review from if you were here in previous sessions today. We'll talk about file name and title. We'll talk about proper document structure, the accessibility assistant in Microsoft Word, which can help you, but it only catches about 30% of the possible accessibility errors. So we'll also do some manual checks on the document. We'll talk about images, tables, the language of the document, or the language of pieces of your document. And then we'll talk about exporting to PDF so that you do not have to touch it. Once it's a PDF, it will be accessible. At least like 85 to 90% there, but that last little percent is okay. All right. The first question you should ask yourself when you are creating a document is, does this need to be a document? Could it be something else? Could it be an HTML page? Could it be an email? Could it be something else other than a document? It's really important to think through those questions. And if it is a document, if it's meant for print, if you have a print and a digital version, then yes, document is the way to go. But an HTML page is going to be more accessible right out of the box, and you can do a couple more formatting things that you cannot do in an accessible Word document. That's the part of document accessibility that's a little bit frustrating because these tools are so flexible, right? You can put text boxes anywhere, you can put tables anywhere, you can use tables in weird ways that are not actually data. You need to stop doing all of that, which is unfortunate. So let's talk about some text considerations. So the first one is to try to use a minimum font size of 12 points. That throughout your document, whether that's headers or headings or body text for your document. That's so that people using screen magnification can see your content properly. So please try to make the minimum font size 12 points in your documents. Try to avoid all capital letters, especially for big blocks of text. And one of the reasons for that, and if you were in the session earlier, Adam talked about this, and he actually has a graphic that shows it really well. So you can watch the recording if you didn't get to that session earlier. Excuse me. The tops of letters that are a mix of capital and lowercase actually have a sort of a curvature to the top of the letters that helps people with disabilities like dyslexia be able to understand the characters quicker. If they're all capital letters, it's just a big block and it's much harder to read. So please try to avoid all capital letters. Acronyms are a total different, I mean, you can, yeah, absolutely use capital letters for acronyms and things like that, but just big blocks of text. Try to use sans serif font for body text. And I have an image up here actually circling where the serifs are on these fonts. So I believe this is Times New Roman is the serif font on the left, and the sans serif font is Arial. These are just example fonts, but it shows you those serifs. Sans serif fonts are easier to read in digital documents and on web pages. Serif fonts make it easier to read on paper. So if a document is going to be digital and print, I would go for sans serif fonts. Avoid images of text. So if you're taking a screenshot of something, it's kind of unavoidable to have a little bit of text in your image. But if you are putting big blocks of text as images in your document, unfortunately, those are inaccessible. Because with any image in our document, we need to add alternative text, which we talked about this morning. And alt text should only be about 2 sentences, tops. So if just even thinking through that, if you've got a big image with a lot of text in it, you can only fit 2 sentences of that in your document. So please try to use live text, not images of text in your documents. Avoid floating text boxes. We love our floating text boxes as sidebars and as call outs for different things. Unfortunately, in Microsoft Word, they have not figured out how to put those text boxes in the reading order of your document, which we'll talk about. So floating text boxes, and if you're not sure what that is, when we talk about images, I'll show you a floating image in this document we're going to fix. So you'll find out what those mean. Also spell out abbreviations the first time they're used in your document. I mean, that's good academic hygiene anyway, good practice, but it's also an accessibility consideration because those abbreviations will get read to assistive technology like screen readers, and they may be confusing for somebody. So for example, this morning, we used the acronym POUR, which is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. It will just read as POUR to an assistive technology like a screen reader. That's very confusing if somebody stumbles upon that within the middle of a sentence, if it's not explained at first. So that's another rule. Avoid replacing words with special characters in a sentence. So the examples here are the number sign or a hashtag, the % sign, and the ampersand. Now, ampersands are okay in headings, but in large body text, please try to avoid those and try to avoid replacing complete words with them. So for example, the % sign is fine if you're saying this is 98% accessible. That's fine to have a % sign within that sentence. But if you're saying the percentage of people at our school, replacing the word percentage with the symbol % is really problematic for assistive technology because you don't actually know what that might be read as. And it might, again, be confusing. Avoid character or line spacing smaller than the default. So you know how you can adjust the line spacing, adjust the character spacing in your documents. Please try not to go below single space. And please don't go below the typical character spacing that is set for your font. It can cause reading issues. It can cause characters to run together and be much more difficult to decipher. And underlines. should be reserved for links only. This is a hard one for people. It's really, really hard. It's hard to get out of that habit. But how many times have you gone into a document, seen something underlined and tried to click it? So even just for usability and familiarity, especially because we're talking about digital documents. We're not talking about printed documents. We're talking about digital documents. Yeah, use bold, use italics, use large text, you know, whatever you need to do for that emphasis in your sentence. Bold is actually it's also called emphasized. So yeah, bold text instead of words. And ensure proper color contrast throughout your document. So again, we talked about that this morning, what color contrast is. We even did an activity around how to recognize good color contrast. So again, review that training session to if you're not sure what what I'm talking about when I say color contrast. But basically it's the degree of luminance or brightness of the colors between the color of the text and the background behind the text. So you can imagine that gets really complicated when you have an image behind text, because you have to check the contrast with every single part of the color that intersects with that text. So if you have an image, if you want to use an image as a background, think about putting a box that has the proper contrast in that image. Anyway, just an aside. Also, we want to make some considerations for sensory language in our documents. Instead of see, listen, click, we want to be more inclusive because some people won't be able to do those things. And if I'm using my device right here, my phone, I'm not clicking on anything. I'm tapping, right? So, or I'm sliding my finger across the screen. So we want to be more inclusive with our language. We want to use words like review, find, discover, select, choose. Select is one of my favorites. I use it all the time. Yeah. But if you're talking about something like double click, it's fine to say double click. People know what that means. But in terms of like click here, that's a little bit more problematic. Just try to, again, this isn't a rule. This is more of a recommendation of best practice. All right. Directional language. That is another thing that is that we should take into consideration when we're creating our documents. So directional language, like the image on the right, or the red button, or the X icon. Those phrases all require vision to be able to understand them. So the image on the right, if you're using assistive technology, there is only forwards and backwards. There's no to the right, to the left, up, down. It's just you're going forward in the document or you're going backwards in the document. And so the image on the right, if I decrease the size of my screen and there's reflow in my document, that image might actually be below or above the text that I'm reading. So instead of the red button, for example, somebody might not be able to see the color red. What does that button mean? The meaning of the button is much more important, or what that button is called is much more important. Or the X icon has the same problem. It looks like an X icon in the upper right corner if you're using a Windows machine, but it's actually called the close button. So we want to be really accurate with our language. So we want it to be more explanatory. The following image, rather than the image on the right. The red cancel button. Right? You can still use the color red because some people will respond to that, but it's also called the cancel button or the close X icon. Again, using both of those, right? Using multiple means for explaining where that is. All right. And links, link text. Adam also went over this morning. We want to avoid phrases that stand alone as read more, click here. I've even seen links that are just link text that is only the word here. Assistive technology like screen readers can actually pull up a list of links throughout your document so that they can find what they need. right? Just like we look for the blue underlined text when we're looking through a document. Oh, what was that link? I remember reading about it. Let me go back to the document. They can pull up that list of the links in their document. And if all of the links say, click here, click here, click here, click here, there's no context, I have no idea where those links go. So instead of having vague language like, this is where it is, click here, we want to use meaningful text language. So describe where that link will go. So for example, this example says Sumner Tunnel Restoration Project. I know exactly where that link is going to go, right? And if we don't put any meaningful text in our link, which is the second example, the https://www.mass.gov. Are you sick of me talking yet? That's what a screen reader has to hear. They have to hear all of that language, excuse me, when they're reading the link text, instead of understanding where exactly that link text is going. So, link text, all right, then file names when you're uploading. I bet you never thought that a document training would talk about file names as part of accessibility, but actually they're really important. So when someone using assistive technology like a screen reader comes across a document that is online, when they download it, the internet doesn't like spaces in titles. So it will fill it with something else. So if your document file name has spaces in the title of the document, it's going to do something funky like this. It will add %20 in those spaces. So this example, or it will just be download.doc, which is super not helpful if you just downloaded 20 papers that you need to read. So we recommend putting hyphens or dashes instead of spaces in your document file names, because those will not be changed. So if the document, if the internet decides to add %20 in the spaces, the document title is now, instead of unemployment application 2024, it's unemployment %20 application %2020 2024. Very confusing, especially with that %20 2024. That's a little much. So yeah, dashes or hyphens between instead of spaces in your file names. There's a quick note. This is only applicable if you're adding it to a website for download. If this is just in your own file system, it's okay to have those spaces, but it's just if this document is going somewhere to be downloaded, to be aware of those spaces in your documents. All right. Document structure, you'll be very familiar with this if you were here in the previous training. This is a screenshot from Microsoft Word. There is some big bold text at the top of the document that says this is a heading 1. The cursor is on that text that says this is a heading 1. What might be wrong with this, what this person is doing?
Someone wasn't here for the last one, so they're not cheating.
I know. Anybody have a guess? Any guesses online? That's okay.
Chat up being very quiet.
Oh, okay, that's
I
all right.
encourage the chat to be louder.
That's all right. Chat can be quiet. So this isn't actually a heading. It's just big bold text. What we need to do, and there's highlights on this screenshot that highlight that this is Aptos body text at 24-point font. It's bold, but when I go over to the styles pane, it's just normal text. So to assistive technology, this is just normal text. I need to choose a heading 1 or a heading for instead of just big bold text. It will be big and bold, probably, but I can choose how it looks, because how it looks, I only need to worry about color contrast and legibility. But it also needs that programming stuff behind the scenes to tell assistive technology, here's the headings in the document, and this is how you can navigate through the document. Because like I said, a screen reader can pull up a list of the links on the page, they can also pull up a list of the headings on the page so they can skip to the part of the document they want to review. So headings are super important for documents, especially for navigation. So when you make your heading structure in your document, and again, I'll show you all of this, how to do this. We'll do it right in Word. There should be one heading 1 in your document and only one heading 1 in your document. There are very few cases where there's more than one heading 1 in a single document. So the heading 1 is your title. Now there is a title style in Microsoft Word that unfortunately doesn't map to any headings. I have heard that they are working on getting it to map to heading 1. It does not work that way now. So please just ignore that title style altogether. Ignore the subtitle style, all of it. Just go with your headings. So heading 1 is at the top. Then you have the sections of your document, the chapters in your document, and those are heading 2s. So just like an outline, they don't have to be indented, but just like an outline, they would be the second heading level within your document. Then those headings are broken up by subheadings. Those are heading 3s. Those headings are broken up even further into heading 4s. You can go all the way to 6. You can probably go till infinity, but if you're going more than 6 heading levels in your document, you may want to reconsider how you're using those headings, because that's a lot of headings to keep track of. But usually I don't see more than 4 headings in a typical document. Anyway, so the example here is the heading 1 is the brochure. It's Welcome to Massachusetts. We've got 4 heading 2s. So that would be the Berkshires, Boston, the Cape, and Martha's Vineyard. Then the Cape is broken down even further into some heading 3s. So on the Cape, we've got Cape Cod National Seashore, Chatham, Provincetown, and Yarmouth. And then P-Town is broken down even further into restaurants and entertainment. So you can kind of see how to build that structure of the headings in your document. All right, now we're going to get into the document. So we're going to go to the Check Accessibility tool. This tool checks for color contrast really well. It will automatically check it for you, except for anything in your image. If you have an image with anything else in it, it won't check that. It will definitely warn you about missing alt text. It will definitely warn you if there are problems with your table structure. It will sometimes warn you if there's a problem with your headings. And that's the majority of what the accessibility checker checks. So it catches all of the low-hanging fruit. So if your document passes the accessibility checker, it's 30% there. 30% more accessible than if you didn't use it. So if that's where you are and that's where you want to focus, that's exactly where I would focus your learning, is learn how to use the accessibility tool and how to fix the errors that the accessibility tool surfaces. And then when you're ready for more, then you can do some of the techniques that I'm going to show you today to make sure that everything in your document is good to go. All right. So, oops, nope, not doing images yet. We're going to go right into our document here we go. Here is our document. All right. So, I've never done this standing up before. This is a little weird. All right. So you can see this document. I've got a header, right, which is kind of grayed out because headers are usually grayed out on the background of my document. This is the title of our practice document. I will show you, it is a 3-page document. So I've got some headings in here. I've got some images. I've got some images down here. I've got some floating images. And eventually we will put a table in the document. The first thing I want to do, my document is basically complete right now. The first thing I want to do is access the Check Accessibility tool. Now there's 3 ways to get to it. The first way is I go Zoom, here we go. I go to the Review tab, the Review ribbon at the top of Microsoft Word. And right on that ribbon, there is a Check Accessibility tool set. If I open that up, there's a bunch of different options. There's the check accessibility tool, there's alt text, there's a navigation pane, which I'll show you later. There's focus, which I'm not really sure with, I think it just gets rid of the distractions on your screen. And then there's options if you need accessibility for your use of Microsoft Word. So let's go see this accessibility assistant. So it pops up on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can see it's picking up a couple of errors that we need to check, but this is what it looks like, right? Let me show you one of the other ways to get to this. And Adam actually mentioned this way during one of the sessions this morning, right down at the bottom of my screen. Hard to see, but it's right there. It says accessibility investigate. If I select that, it also opens up the accessibility checker or the accessibility assistant. If it says accessibility investigate, that means there's issues that it's found. If it says accessibility good to go, it has not found any issues yet. So it's a quick way to just get a quick assessment of how you're doing with your document as you're creating it. Now, the third way to get to the accessibility assistant is you go to File, you go to Info, and down here in the under Protect Document, there's Inspect Document. You can check for accessibility right here. I select that, and it opens the accessibility assistant on the right-hand side of my screen. Very easy to get to these. We will fix those issues in just a moment, but I want to make sure that we go in order. All right, so now you know how to get to the accessibility assistant. We're going to talk about images because I saw that some of the issues within our document is that there were some images that were missing alt text. So there's a lot of ways that we can go in and add alt text to our images in our documents. We can right click on the image, view alt text, and replace it. Usually, Word will usually generate alt text for you. It's usually really bad and not very helpful. So we definitely want to either check it or write it ourselves. Replace it with something more appropriate or mark it as decorative if it's just decoration within your document. So when I was a communications director, I had one of the designers that I worked with loved to put these little bubbles as like sort of borders on our brochures and documents and things like that. I made so many images decorative, I can't even. Everything was just decorative. It was great, but that was basically it. So let's go into our document. Oh, and sorry, also, our images need to be in line. They cannot be floating. And I'll show you what that means when we get to our document. So we select the image, select picture format, select the wrap text tool, and then select inline with text. So let me get to our document again. So as I said, over here in our accessibility assistant, it says missing alt text 3. All I need to do to get to that missing alt text, I don't need to guess which of my images doesn't have alt text. I can just select that and it brings me to the first one that does not have alt text. Now, the accessibility assistant will consider auto-generated alt text the same as having no alt text at all, which is wonderful. So you can always make sure that you check all of the alt text to make sure that you have written it or at least checked it. So this is highlighting that T icon that is actually supposed to be representing text. The automatically generated alt text says a picture containing set text. Not very helpful. And then it says description automatically generated. So I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to write icon representing text formatting. And I will save it. And now it brings me to the next image that doesn't have alt text. And this actually doesn't have any alt text at all. So let's add some icon representing image formatting. And I can save it. It brings me to the next one that doesn't have any alt text. And I just wanted to point this out. You can also just kind of scroll through your document. Do you see this little tiny accessibility guy? It's like a gingerbread man. It's blue. This little symbol you can also select and it will bring up the alt text right within your document. So that's another option for you if you want to, if that's another way to find the errors in your document. So again, this one was automatically generated and it just says icon. Again, not very helpful. So we're going to replace that with icon representing alt text. And I will approve that. So according to the accessibility assistant, we're done. But what, it's 2:30, we've got another almost hour. We can't possibly be done now, right? Yeah. So this is where you realize, oh, the accessibility assistant only checks a couple of things for me, which is very helpful. Again, very helpful, but not everything. So one of the things I talked about was floating images. This particular, and I'm just going to close the accessibility assistant just to give us a little bit more room on the page. This is a floating image. I can move it anywhere around on the screen and the text wraps around it. Unfortunately, this is completely inaccessible for screen readers because it will pop in that image, not where you want it to read the image. It will pop it in wherever it wants to. And it's typically at the bottom of the page. So all of our images need to be in line if we're going to maintain the accessibility of our Word document and then export to an accessible PDF. If you are doing work on the PDF afterwards, feel free to have floating images because there are different ways that you can adjust the reading order in a PDF than there are in Microsoft Word. Again, one of the upcoming features I've heard is that this little anchor will eventually help with that reading order. But for right now, it's only for EPUB and most people don't export their documents as EPUB. So unfortunately, it doesn't work. So instead of floating images, we need to have them in line. So if you notice these layout options that appear when I select the image, I'm going to go ahead and select those layout options. And right at the top, it says in line with text. I could select that there, or oops, sorry, the Zoom thing is, here we go. You can go to picture format, and there's also wrap text options there. So I just wanted to show you that there's always two ways in Microsoft Word to do something. So we select in line with text, and it puts it right in line with the text. Now that looks a little funky, right? It doesn't look very nice because you've got the heading, floating images, and then you've got this image. So I usually drag my images after, like I do a carriage return or a return, and then my image is right after the text that I want, or before, either way, but it must be in line. So that's one sad thing that I'm telling you no longer to make floating images in your Word documents. Unfortunately, I know it's really bad. So a couple of things that we want to check in our document. You notice that our document did not pick up any heading errors. This document has heading errors, trust me. So typically what the accessibility assistant will do, I said that this document is 3 pages long. For documents that are over like 5 pages, it will start to recognize when headings are out of order, or if you're missing any headings. It will not recognize if you have more than one heading 1 in your document. It will not recognize if you've skipped a heading. Sometimes it just really depends. So it's definitely a good practice to check the headings in your document. Now I said that I would show you some secrets. This is how I typically work on, this is how my Word document setup is usually done. So I go to my check accessibility tools in my review ribbon. I go down to the navigation pane and I select that. What it does is it actually will show me the heading structure in my document in outline format, which is super helpful if you are, working on the heading structure of your document. You can even see from this that there are some issues with my heading structure. The other thing that I have open, I go to my home tab, and right here is the styles pane. Now you can, sometimes people open it up at the top of the ribbon. I like to keep it docked on the right-hand side of my screen so that whenever I'm putting my cursor on any content in my document, it will highlight what level heading or whether it's body text or it's list text or anything like that in my document. So we can tell from this document, let me just open this. It's not doing it. Never mind. So this is the title, the dreaded title style. And this is the title style that I told you does not map to anything, any kind of heading structure in our document. So I actually have to change this. This is the title of our practice document. I have to change this into a heading 1. And all I have to do is select the text and then select heading 1. But it changed the look of it, right? Maybe I want it to look like the other way that it looked. So I'm going to just undo that change. I've still got my text selected. You can see it's the title style. If I want to maintain this as my heading 1 style, do you see how I've moved my cursor over to the far right? There's a little caret drop down right next to heading 1, the language heading 1. I can say update heading 1 to match selection, and then all of the heading 1s in the document will look like this. Magic, right? Like when I first learned this and that I was like, why don't more people know this? Because it just makes designing a document a whole lot easier, right? You don't have to go one by one to each of those headings and change it manually. You can make these headings basically look like whatever you want in your document. As long as they pass contrast, as long as it's legible text. So I just did that. So all of the heading 1s in our document look like that, like this right here. So that is our heading 1. This says, is this a heading 1? I'm going to put my cursor on it. Yes, it is a heading 1, but it shouldn't be a heading 1, right? Because it's the first subsection of our document. I need to make this a heading 2. There we go. Heading 2. Gotta scroll down, just make sure. Is this a heading? Let's see. Nope, it's normal text. So I'm going to select it. It's another heading 2. Select heading 2. Again, it looks different, but this is, you know how to change it now if you need to. You can also modify these, just so you know. So I can actually go to that drop down in the styles pane, go to modify, do all sorts of funky things with my fonts, right? I can make it blue, I can make it green, I can make it bold, I can make it italics, I can do all sorts of things. It's up to you what you want to do. I like to keep my documents pretty simple. I usually go with the standard, styles for the document, but if you have other styles that you prefer, absolutely, that's fine. All right, it says, what about this one? Can you read that? Can you read that? Can you tell me which heading it is? Can you see? Anybody see what heading level this one is?
3.
3. Yep, exactly right. And that's fine because it's below a 2, right? If it's a subsection of heading 2, it's heading 3, and that's good. All right, styles pane. Which one's that? 2. Yep. And that is good to go. We've got images.
I'm sorry
would
to
have
bother
been-
you. I'm on Zoom and I've had my hand up.
Oh.
I lost you where to find the styles page, and I have a syllabus up I'm looking at, and your screen of course is black and mine is white looking at that. So I just lost, I'm trying to take notes and follow it.
Yep.
And I have good accessibility, but where is the styles piece? I went
All right.
to
So,
review, but I can't find where you were.
Yep, okay, so on the home ribbon, do you see where I am on the home ribbon?
Yes.
Okay. In the middle of that ribbon is an option called styles. Do you see that? For me, it's right in the center of my ribbon.
Hmm.
And if you can't find it, do you see the search bar at the top?
Yes.
For us, there's no spacing, it's in white on the
For the
right
s-
side.
If you look at the search bar at the top, you can also search for styles. It'll be
Yes.
styles. Go ahead and select
Yes.
that. It closed mine because I had mine open.
Sorry about that.
No, all good. So do you see the styles pane now? On your,
No, I'll just have to look at your PowerPoint. I've got styles searching. I don't know why it says apply styles, text styles.
so text style, what you're looking for.
Okay,
Yep,
thank you.
you bet, you bet. Is my screen sharing paused? It says it's paused.
I don't see your screen.
Okay, good, okay. I scroll, was it scroll? It is not scrolling. What's going on? Oh, sorry, I clicked pause. Why did I do that? Sorry about that. My fault. All right, so images, that heading is level 2, which is fine. Then we've got floating images, which should be a heading 3. Again, it is a heading 3, so we're good. And then this table student population, that's a heading 2. It's a new topic. Again, you can have a heading 2 after a heading 3 because it's just bopping back and forth between the 2 levels. All right, so that's our headings. Then, and then also on this, in this navigation pane on the right, you can see now, we've got one heading 1. I can actually collapse it, so I know it's a heading 1. And then these are all heading 2s, and I know that because I can collapse them as well. See, all of them are heading 2s, and then I can open these up, and here are my heading 3s. So just another handy way to understand the structure of your document. All right. So I've got this. I said I was going to show you some more image stuff. So these 3 images at the top of my screen are in a table.
Dun, dun, dun.
Like, I feel like there should be like Jaws music or something. This
Need
is
some sixties TV. sound
right,
effects.
right. This is called using tables for formatting. If you have ever heard that phrase before, this is an accessibility, like you will make any accessibility like their skin crawl if you say I'm using tables for formatting. So please, please, please do not do this. But if you have done it, it's okay. Again, you didn't know, now you know. You know better, you do better. So to fix this, all I need to do is select the images, do Control X for cut. Actually, right, yeah, there's some space right there. I'm going to paste it right below the table. Take my second one, do Control X to cut it, Control V to paste it, Control X. Oops. Oh, for goodness sake. There we go. And then Control V to paste it. Now it doesn't look exactly like I had it before. I could probably put some spacing in here that would make it a little bit make it look a little bit more, but these are all inline images. I'll show them to you right now. They're all inline and they line up just fine on my document. So you may have to redesign some things if you have used a table for formatting. But that's a really hard concept to understand if you've never seen it done. So I wanted to make sure that that was something that we talked about. And all I have to do with this table, once I get rid of it, is just delete the table from my document because we don't need that one. We're gonna make a new one. Tables. All the fancy table stuff you know and love in Microsoft Word. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately. So tables in Microsoft Word have to be what's called square tables, meaning that they do not have split cells, they do not have merged cells, and they do not have empty cells unless it's something for someone else to fill in as part of like an assignment, right? And in that case, you would have instructions before the table that says, this table is meant to be filled in. That's the only way that empty cells are allowed in Microsoft Word tables. Now, if you yes, questions?
Just repeat that one more time.
Yes.
That it can't have.
Yep. It cannot, so square tables are tables that have the exact same columns per row and the exact same rows per column. Meaning, you cannot have split cells. So you can't split a cell into two or more. You can't have merged cells, so you can't merge two cells together. And then you can't have empty cells. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Split, merge, empty. No more. If you have more complex tables and that need to be in your document, if you're exporting to a PDF, there are some advanced table features that you can use where you can have a split cell, you can have a merged cell. I will tell you, it will take you hours of work to do, but it's possible. So we also see a lot of people using tables like they'll have headings within their tables. So like they've got 3 tables in their table because they all have the same header columns. Please don't do that. Make 3 separate tables. You cannot split up a table. I know, I see the back row is just the anguish on your faces. I feel the pain, I really do. I'm like the worst Debbie Downer ever.
No, it's not you.
I know, I believe me, I was a high school teacher, it rolls off my back.
And I just want to note too, this,
It's on.
what is it?
Oh, mute.
Is this thing off on mute? Oh, there we go. I just want to note too that you can do some tricks to make things visually appear the same and not be that thing. So like if you really have a table where you've got, let's say a black filled in header that goes across the whole table, that's one giant merge cell, that's the title, and then you got columns, and then you do that merge cell again for the next title and you got columns. If you take a table with just the columns and copy and paste it, and then you put in a line in between with that text and you make it black and white and put the tables so that they're up against each other and it looks identical, that's accessible. However, trying to use merge cells mid-table is not. So there's definitely some like kind of tricky workarounds that we can do, much like floating text boxes can be weird, and having a text box in the middle where you're trying to do something that's a call out. Well, if you put that text on the page, center it, put a shape around it in a box, and hide that shape from the screen reader, now it works because you can mark that as decorative. So there's some ways that you can kind of trick, you can do the same visual layouts and do them in a different way so that it looks the same, but it functions better for assistive technology. So if you've got something where you have a layout that you're really used to, bring it to us in office hours, and we've got a lot of tricks and workarounds that we can try to say, all right, here's a way to make it look like that, but it'll still work. And it just might be a different technique.
Yeah. All of
Get
these,
rid of Word completely.
get rid of Word
I
completely.
mean, that works really
It
well.
works for, yeah.
Don't let Microsoft tell us, know what I said.
As a document specialist, I'm okay with Word going away. I'm okay with PDFs going away. They're problematic. They were designed for a print world. And unfortunately, now that we have a digital world, they haven't caught up in terms of the accessibility.
Are they working on it or are they thinking?
They're working on it. Microsoft has made a lot of leaps and bounds since I started using it for accessible documents. Really, they have. And remember, this is your intro to Word accessibility, right? I'm giving you rules that help you learn these techniques. Once you know the rules, there are ways to break them, like Adam said, in a very specific way. All right, so let's talk about tables. So we do want to use the insert tab to add our tables. We never want to draw it. We want to include headers, which are different from headings in our tables, and I'll show you what those are. We want to check our table with the check accessibility tool. We do not want to draw a table because that actually doesn't make a table in your document. It just puts outlines around the text. We never want to use that table for layout, like I showed you. Don't do that, please. We don't want to add empty cells for space. So some people add like an extra row because it separates things out a little bit more. Unfortunately, you can't do that. That's empty cells. We don't want to merge or split cells. And what we were just talking about is what is called a nested table. It's a table within a table, or it's multiple tables in the same table. That is a nested table. We do not want to do that. And we also don't want to use those special characters as replacements for words in our headers. So if you're talking about percentage, again, don't just put %sign as the header for that. Write out percentage. All right. So we're going to insert a table. We're going to add a header row. We're going to add alt text to our table because tables need alt text too. And then we're going to add a visible caption. All right, so this table is for student population. It says insert a table with 3 rows and 4 columns. So right in my document, so I'm going to go to my insert ribbon. It's thinking, sorry, my computers, there we go. And then right below the word insert is my insert table tool. So it says 3 rows and 4 columns. So 3 rows, 4 columns, and there I go. I can also define that in a different, like I said, there's always 2 ways to do something in Microsoft Word. Probably more than 2. So we're gonna just add some information. I'm making this information up, so please do not quote me on any of it. All right, so I put some dates at the top. I have city, 2022, 2023, 2024. City, I'm gonna say Boston. And then in the next one, I'm gonna say Worcester, which is the most difficult word to say when you're typing it. Have you ever tried that? It's unbelievable.
It's pretty hard.
It's really hard. I've been practicing. All right, so we'll just make up some numbers here. 120,000, 10,000, 50,000. And then for Worcester, a little bit smaller, we'll say 45,000, 50,000, 60,000. Okay, so we have a table here. We should be all done, right? Oh, wait, there's more. Okay. So there's a couple of things that we need to do to check to make sure that our headers are proper in our table. And there's a couple of ways that we need to do this. The first way is I'm already in, if you have created a table and you have your cursor in your table, the table design and the table layout ribbons will appear. So right now I'm in the table design ribbon. And over on the left-hand side, there's some check boxes. There's header row, first column, total row, last column, banded columns, banded rows. The banded columns and banded rows are just visual. They don't add any information for assistive technology. You can choose to have banded rows, especially if you have a big long table. Banded rows make it easier to read the table. Those are fine to have. But I definitely want to make sure that my header row is the one at the header row is always at the top of your table. And I'm also going to make sure that the first column is selected. This is the default that Microsoft puts in your tables for header row and header column. So it will make the first column also a header for the rows. Sorry, for the columns. It's so the columns and rows are just. All right, so I know from that perspective that my table has headers. What I need to do now is double check that and do a couple of more things. So I have my cursor in this cell that says city, which is part of my header row. I'm going to right click or alt click. And then I'm going to go to table properties, which is what will appear. And then in table properties, I'm going to go to the row tab. And I'm going to tick the box that says repeat as header row at the top of each page. Now, one of the reasons to get into that habit of repeating as the header row at the top of each page is if somebody else takes your document and enlarges the text, all of a sudden your table goes across a couple pages and your header row is left at the top. and they have no idea where they're going in your table. So definitely make sure that that box is ticked. It just double make sure that that top row is your header row. And then we say, okay, and this is one of these annoying things you will need to learn to do. But now we're going to select the whole table. And one of the ways that we can do that is this little crosshairs thing in the upper left corner of my table. I can select that and it actually will select the whole table, a little time saving tip, or you can just highlight all the cells in your table, whichever is easiest for you. Then I again, on the table, I will right click and I will select table properties. And I will deselect the item that says allow row to break across pages. We do not want our rows to break across pages. Because if assistive technology comes across that table and starts reading it, it won't necessarily read the full information in the table if it crosses across a page. Right? It'll read the first half of each cell, and then it will read the second half of each cell. We don't want that. So if we don't allow the row to break across a page, then it will read the full contents of those cells. So we definitely want to untick that. Just a little hint, you see that this repeat header row at the top of each page is blue with a dash in it. That just means that for one thing in my table, this is true. That's all it means. If it doesn't have the check mark, if it just has the blue with the line, it means I'm good to go. It doesn't mean that it will repeat my entire table. Just to clarify. All right, now I just want to make these rows kind of look like header rows too, so I can do that just visually. I just select my cells. I can make that text bold. I can even choose one of the styles up here that Microsoft Word provides. There's all sorts of options here. I'm gonna make Boston and Worcester bold as well. And now we have an accessible table, except for, we forgot. I right click, again, I selected the whole table. I right clicked because I forgot to do this before we exited the table properties. We go to table properties. And then I go to alt text. And there's two things with this alt text tab that I need to do with my table. The first thing is I need to add a metadata title. It says title. It will not show anywhere in the document. It is just for assistive technology. Again, if they're pulling up that elements list, they can jump right to that table and know what it is. So I'm going to title this student population. And then I need to add some alt text. So for tables, think of alt text as what you want people to get out of the table. So for example, this table, and I'll move my cursor so you can actually see the numbers. So for this table, it looks like the Boston student population went up in 2023 and then it went down in 2023, but then it rebounded in 2024. For Worcester, it was a steady increase in student population. That's the general idea of this table. So that's what I'm going to use as my description. I'm going to say student population in Boston decreased in 2023, but increased in 2024, period. Student population in Worcester increased steadily. Again, I'm not using the numbers. I'm just generally giving the idea of, so that somebody can decide, do I want to read all the data in that table or do I just want the general idea? So the person can choose. I then say, okay, and now my table is accessible. Now, if I want to add a caption to my table, I can do that. I think it's on the references tab. Oh, here it is. All right. It is on the references tab. I always forget if it's references or review, sorry. Insert caption is right here. So again, I've got my cursor on my table. I select insert caption. It will automate. So this is like the best way to number the figures in your academic paper, by the way. It will actually, so you can choose the different label, you can choose equation, figure, table, whatever you want. It will number them for you. You can choose whether the position is above the item or below. So I can actually have it as the title of my table. So table 1, student population, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can exclude the label from the caption or you can include it. So if I wanted to, I could just take, if I only have one table in my document, I can delete, or I can make it not show that table 1. And I can say, okay, and there you go. There's my little caption for my table. I set it above. It's in small text, but I can enlarge that if I want. But it is connected to the table, which is important again for assistive technology to know that is the title of this table. That's where it is. All right. Any questions? I know we're not quite done yet, but are there any burning questions that haven't gotten to? Don't hate me yet. I'm telling you all the fun things you can't word anymore.
While you're doing that, I
Yeah.
would like to pause and add that a lot of these limitations are limitations of Word.
Yes,
It is not that there aren't other ways to make this stuff happen. Some of these things, like a floating text box, you can't export that from Word and have it be accessible. But you can open it up in Acrobat and learn how to use Acrobat to fix that floating text box. So there's other ways to do things. Web pages also. Floating isn't a thing on the web. The images are images on the web. They can be placed wherever you want, and they can be totally accessible. So there's limitations of Word that don't think that this necessarily extends to other things. There's still ways to make stuff happen. And if you've got a specific, example of a page in your course or in a document that you're doing, bring that to us in office hours and we can talk about a way that you could make that happen accessibly. So please don't think like, hey, you can never use a table again and you can never use images floating again. No, you can't.
just not
in Word.
word.
So
Unfortunately.
please provide that feedback to feedback@microsoft.com.
Yes, the louder we are, the quicker they'll fix stuff, I swear. All right, so let's talk about language and let's talk about links. So we've got a naked link here. I say naked, no naked URLs. We need URLs with meaningful text clothes. No naked URLs. All right. How I fix this is I right click on the URL. I go to edit hyperlink. And right up here, it says text to display. I can delete the HTTPS :/www.mass.gov, and I can replace that with Commonwealth of Massachusetts homepage. And I say, okay, and that's the text that appears on the page, and it is linked. You can also use the Control K. That will also bring up the link options for you. So just easy thing to fix in your document. All right, so now I've got some Spanish text here. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Which looks a little funny and Word thinks that it's spelled wrong. So I need to change the language of this piece of text in my document. So I go to my review tab. I guessed them both right this time. It's amazing. Then in my review tab, I have my language options. Now, I don't want to translate this. I want to go to my language options. I want to set the proofing language for the text that I have highlighted. It is set to English. I'm going to change that to Spanish. There are a ton of languages in here. So if you are doing language translations, it should be here. And if it's not, call Microsoft. You can tell it to not check the spelling or grammar. It can also detect the language automatically. I do not recommend ticking that box because I've had, actually one of our colleagues who uses JAWS, the JAWS screen reader, contacted me one day. He's like, why are all your headings in French? I was like, oh, what is going on? And apparently, for some reason, it was detecting that my headings were all in the French language and it was reading them with a French accent. I mean, maybe I sounded fancy in my document. So I changed it to Spanish. And now it tells me, actually, there's something wrong with this. Hola, ¿cómo estás? It tells me, oh, there's accents and upside down question, it actually, now it looks like Spanish. Now it's not just English as Spanish, it's actually Spanish. And it will read properly to assistive technology, which is really what we want.
And I just want to pause for a moment. We had a question about how do students access accessible text to have it read for them. So when folks who have visual impairments or sometimes motor skill impairments or cognitive impairments may use a piece of software called a screen reader. On Windows, there is Windows Narrator, NVDA or JAWS. On a Mac or iPhone, there's what's called VoiceOver, and on Android devices, there's what's called TalkBack. And this is something that reads aloud the things that are on the screen. So if a student is using one of those, that is when they will get these extra interactions like alt text or the descriptions that we added to the table.
Great
I
question.
do want to know our next screen reader demos on December 10th. If you want to see how different screen readers work, if you sign up for one of our trainings and you can't make it, we will still send you the recording the following day. So feel free to register for trainings that you can't make, just so you can get the recordings emailed to you.
Good follow-up, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, one last thing. So remember this header up here? Screen readers skip any information in the header or in the footer, which is good for some things. But for header information and footer information, if it is not in your document at least once, we have to take it out of the header. So all I have to do is go into the header. All I did there was I double clicked to open up the header. You can and again, it opens up the header and footer options in my ribbon. I'm just going to take all of this, the image included. I'm going to Control X to cut it. Then again, I double click in my document. Oops. You can collapse headings in your document if you need to too. That's a fun thing. Just going to add an enter here. I'm going to make sure that this is not labeled as a heading 1. So I'm going to either clear all or go to normal text. And then I just paste it. And now it's in my document. Everybody will get the information that it's from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I already have alt text on that image when I put it in there. That's as easy as it is. Now, I also have some information in my footer. It says accessibility practice document and it has page numbers. I really don't want those page numbers read out loud by a screen reader or any other assistive technology, so that's fine. And the document title is already in the main body of the document. So if there is information that you want to put on subsequent pages of your document that would stay in the header, like your logo or an address or a phone number or your name or whatever it is, as long as it's once somewhere else in your document, it's okay to keep that hidden in the header for the rest of the pages in your document. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we've done a bunch of different things to our document. Again, it was accessible about 40 minutes ago, or at least it told us that it was accessible about 40 minutes ago. But now I think it's really accessible. But let's run that accessibility checker one more time. I'm just going to go down to the bottom of my screen. You can see now it changed to accessibility good to go. So I'm just going to select that. And I just want to double check. I'm going to go up to the top. It says looks good, no issues found. So it checked the color and contrast. It checked media and illustrations. It checked tables. It checked document structure. It checked a document access. That is another thing that you need to be aware of. If you protect your documents to be not editable, unfortunately, that also means that assistive technology cannot get into your documents. So you need to not protect security of your documents. That's also another wah-wah. Sad trombone. Sorry, that was my sad trombone sound, didn't you know? So I will close this. All right, so now we are going to, now we have our Word document is fine as it is. It's accessible, it's usable. I could send this out right now and somebody with assistive technology would be able to get all of the content that's in it. But I want to make it a PDF. So I'm going to go to my file menu. And this is for, I think this is the same one next too, but you go to save a copy. Do you see this? Well, have you ever tried to print as PDF? Don't ever do that again. Printing as PDF. Printing as PDF,
I'm gonna get you a
unfortunately.
yardstick so you can like slap people's hands.
I was a high school teacher. I've got that teacher voice. Printing as PDF, it takes away all of the accessibility work that you did in your source document, which is that Word document. Yes,
Is that the
question.
same as downloading something as like a flattened PDF?
Yes,
Okay. Thanks.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, downloading something as a flattened PDF will also
It's the same
often
thing.
will strip away all of the accessibility. So one of the things that, so PDFs are an unusual creature, as Adam was alluding to in some of the earlier sessions.
I think I was rude about it.
Okay, I'm used to people being rude about PDFs. I love PDFs because they're like a puzzle to me, but I'm a nerd and weird. But PDFs use all of the accessibility stuff, and what they do is they translate that accessibility work that we did in our document into what's called tags in the PDF. And Microsoft Word used to be really bad at exporting those headings into tags properly. Now it does a pretty good job right off the bat, but you have to do a save as a copy. Don't want to print. So we're going to save this as a copy. And all you have to do, I'm going to keep this in the same folder it was. So I've got the name of my document. And I have, the type is a Word document. I want to open up the drop-down list of the type of document, and I want to choose PDF. So now it will create a PDF. And I want to save that. Now, before I do that, if you have Adobe Acrobat Pro installed, there is also an option to save as Adobe PDF. You can feel free to use that too. I've actually been experimenting doing some with save a copy, some with save as Adobe PDF. There's wins and losses on either option. So it's pretty much a toss-up for a document like this, that you're just going straight from Word into PDF and you're not going to touch the PDF afterwards. So either way, either option is fine to do. But I'm going to do a save as, because sometimes people don't have Adobe Acrobat Pro installed. And then I just save it. And it will hopefully open up my new PDF once it's been created. Yep, it did. This is our PDF. So on the left-hand side of my screen, because I work on PDF accessibility so much, I just have the tags show themselves when I open up a document, so I can immediately tell, is this even a tagged PDF or is it just a screenshot of a PDF? But you can see in my document, I've got paragraph tags, I've got, if you know HTML, you kind of know PDF tags. Here I've got some paragraphs, I've got my heading 1, H1. I've got paragraphs at heading 2. I've got a paragraph, I've got a list. So it tags all of those things that we did in Microsoft Word into the PDF. But let's do a quick accessibility check of this document. I'll close the tags because that can be distracting. I go to my accessibility checker. I can actually create an accessibility report if I want to, but I'm not going to right now. And then I'm going to start checking my document. It has 3 issues. Oh, there was one thing that I forgot to show you. I always forget this one. So let me go back to my Word document just one moment. Just so you know, if you check the accessibility of any PDF in Adobe Acrobat Pro, it will always have you manually check the color contrast and the reading order. Those will always show up as errors. So don't worry if you see those every time you open a document. They will always be there every time you open the document. But let me just go back to my Word document really quickly because I always forget this one. All right. So again, this is back to our Word document. We're going to go to the File menu and to Info again. Now over here in the document properties is an item called title. And what this title but this type, it's like a metadata title for the document that will show up as, so if people are using assistive technology and they have several documents open, this will actually help that person understand which documents they have open because it will read the title to them instead of the file name. And we know our file names are sometimes all sorts of, final, or version 6.3, or, however you do your document titles. So we need an actual title for this document. So this is just an example document. And I just press enter, and now my document has a metadata title. And just quickly, because I forgot to do it, in Adobe Acrobat Pro, all I need to do is right click that error and select fix. And I can add this title right here. And again, this is only in Adobe Acrobat Pro. Acrobat Reader, unfortunately, has no accessibility options. So you absolutely need Adobe Acrobat Pro to be able to remediate a PDF afterwards. But again, this training was not for the PDF part of the document. It is taking a Word document and exporting it as PDF so you don't have to touch it with Adobe Acrobat Pro. And then there's the author, the subject you can add if you want to. It's helpful for some people. You can add keywords to make your document easier to find. All of that stuff is metadata. It does not appear anywhere inside the document itself. And that's it. We now have an accessible PDF and an accessible Word document, which is our source document. Ta-da! It's kind of anticlimactic, Like, yay, a document.
So I just went through a lot of stuff to be like, and that's it.
I know, right? You're probably like, it's all swimming in your head. The session is being recorded. We also have, I do this training like every other week. Yeah. So if you missed it, if you're like, wow, I need to see that again, or anything like that.
We also, and we'll be sending out links to everybody, but we've also got both this training and the fundamentals training available on mass.gov as a self-paced guide, where it covers everything that we talked about today. We have to update our leadership training because we just modified that for to target a little more towards schools than the state. So that one, the one that we have up there now is kind of generic, but the Word and the fundamentals training are all available online as self-paced with the examples.
Any last minute about anything, any accessibility questions? Doesn't just have to be about documents. Yeah.
So this is just me, I want to be really anal as far as making sure that the document is correct. So is there any free software that I could access that if I create my first accessible document, that I'm able to run it through a particular software to get what the perspective is, if it's being read to me, or if I'm visually impaired, to make sure that what I just did was
So
true.
your question is more like, how can I check for, like, would this work with a screen reader?
Well, either that or just because this is all brand new to me.
Yeah.
And I want to know from the perspective of someone who is hearing impaired or someone who is visually impaired, on what tools do they use, so that way when I create a document, I know what they either see or what they hear. So it kind of makes sense to me, so that when I'm actually redoing a document to be accessible, that I have an idea as to what their perspective is.
Yeah. So I would recommend two things, and then Adam, you may, and even Ashley may have more about this. I would recommend that you come to our screen reader demo, because we definitely, like, I read a PDF with NVDA, which is a screen reader for Windows. I read it when it's broken and I read it when it's fixed. And then we have a colleague, Rob Dias, who uses JAWS as in his everyday work. And he reads a PDF form, both a broken one and a fixed one. And then Adam uses VoiceOver, and he goes through a broken and a fixed web page. So that would be the first recommendation. The second recommendation I would make is come to office hours with your first document.
Oh, trust me, you're
And
gonna
we-
see my hand. Oh my gosh,
So
it's
we
on
can't
again.
We can't wait, but we can text it with a screen reader right in office hours. Yeah, so you can get that perspective. Now, Adam did say that Windows Narrator is already built into your Windows machine. It's the yuckiest screen reader out there, unfortunately.
Most folks that use it to install another screen.
That's its primary function. Now, if you have a Mac, VoiceOver is very well, I mean,
It's the only option.
yeah, it's the only option, but it's a good option. It's very good. The first thing about trying out screen readers is to know how to turn it off, because any device that you're using will act differently once you turn that screen reader on. Like when you move your mouse, it will start talking to you. When you like, I've had my screen reader turn on in the middle of the grocery store, and I did not know how to turn it off. I was just reading whatever text messages came in while I was walking through the grocery store, so everybody knew my business.
I will give a quick example of when your screen reader turns on. I'm going to turn it on my phone here and just have it talk into the microphone.
VoiceOver on, clock, 3:23 p.m.
I can't just touch something and open it anymore.
Forecast, 6
Stop.
mostly
Doesn't
clear.
do that.
37
I now have to swipe.
Home folder, set games folder, home bureau, one new item. Games go home folder, Google Maps.
And then I have to double tap.
To open.
And now if I go, okay, I don't want this anymore, and I shut my screen off,
Heading.
that button doesn't work anymore to stop things. Now, when I go to try to open my screen, swipe doesn't work. The home button doesn't work, because now everything works differently. So if you're you asked, is there free software where I can find out what the experience is? Yes, but it makes your tech work completely differently. So if you want to experiment with it, I would encourage that. We don't encourage anybody to do testing with a screen reader because of the learning curve. Mindy and I have both been using screen readers for 10 years. We are still nowhere near the proficiency level of someone who natively uses it for their job or, personal life every day.
3:24 p.m.
Let me shut this up. So it's a really cool tool, and once you learn how to get it, or to use it, it's pretty wild. A few months ago, I went to the eye doctor. I had my eyes dilated, and I thought I'd be able, the first time it ever happened, I'd ever gotten that done. I came home and I'm sitting on the computer, and I realized I had to use VoiceOver to use Teams because I couldn't read anything. And I messaged Ashley and our other colleague, Rob, who was also a native screen reader user. And I said, man, I can't see anything on the screen right now, and it's making it kind of hard to work. And his response was, well, welcome to my world, Normie. So I realized it was the world's tiniest violin playing for me, considering my colleagues. But it is definitely a very different experience when you have to use this stuff versus when you were using it for testing or using it just to get the experience. So definitely try it out, but the first thing to learn how to do for a screen reader is learn how to turn it off. Otherwise, it becomes real frustrating.
The first thing I ever learned with NVDA was insert Q, because that quits the program.
And who would have guessed that insert Q
Right.
was with this application keyboard shortcut? So yeah, on the iPhone, it is triple click the side button, 1, 2, 3, and that brings up options, and then you choose the options, and then you triple click to bring that up again. That can be turned on and off. But that is something that when I worked at Apple, I saw people do that. Their children did that to them accidentally all the time. And they would come in very frustrated that their kid was playing with their phone, and now their phone didn't work, but it was talking to them. So yes, definitely screen readers are great, big learning curve. And unfortunately, as far as, is there anything free that'll test this one? The best free things that test it for you is that Microsoft Accessibility Checker, and only gets about 30%. Opening in Acrobat, again, automated testing only gets about 30%. We're hoping that in the near future, people will use AI for good, and we will have some better checkers out there. I had mentioned this in an earlier session, but right now the problem is that since the web is only about 4% accessible, AI is being trained on 96% inaccessible content. So it's not great at picking that out at this point. Hope it's capable of getting there. It's just the funding to get a company to do that instead of ripping off someone else's voice or face, which is way more popular and will get them more money. That's the way it's gonna go first, right? So, we got a long road, but
It's getting there.
we're getting there.
I mean, Ashley was telling us that she found some AI stuff that's very
Yeah.
cool for accessibility.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
And office hours are once a month, you said, or every other week?
Generally twice a month.
Twice a
We
month?
got a little bit of a mess up in that because of Thanksgiving and the winter holidays that are coming up. But I think we've got 3 or 4 more education office hours this year, and then it'll resume, and then twice a month.
And are you gonna send us out a link to sign up for
We
an
are,
appointment?
they're already in the Zoom chat for folks who have the Zoom recording, but we're gonna send up a follow-up email to Stephanie to send out to everybody that joined. That'll have links to all of our different training resources, to the recaps from today, to office hours, to our different, we have document checklists.
Yeah,
You
those
can go
document
through your
checklists are
checklist
really
and say,
helpful.
here's a Word doc, a PowerPoint, an Excel, a PDF that I did, here's a checklist. So we'll be sending out all of those resources to folks after today.
Yes,
QR codes,
QR codes, yes.
put a QR code in a document, does the QR code itself need alt text, and then the link? We type a link underneath it, like, so.
So, yeah, so the
We just
question,
did that
we did. So the question is about QR codes and how to handle those in a document. First of all, if your document is meant to be consumed digitally, I would rethink QR codes. Because if you only have one device and you've got a QR code on the document, how am I gonna get to the QR code with, I need 2 devices to actually use a QR code on a digital document. So that's the first sort of caveat, but if you have a document that has a QR code, our advice is to put the naked URL, right? Hopefully it's a shortened URL or a URL that makes some sense. It's not one of those long Zoom link URLs. Put that below the QR code and set the QR code as decorative.
Do you have the document we did this on the other day? We can talk about it. So we just did a document that we sent out to folks to do for print, for handout for schools and municipalities. And I'm happy to send you that document as well. But we knew that if we're sending it out to people in email, we needed to make it accessible. So we've got, it has a QR code on it, and that QR code we actually marked as decorative and hid it from a screen reader. The link itself is the plain text link, like join office hours. And then we put text following that with the link, the big ugly URL link as text, so that if it's printed, someone can see that text and type it in. They can use the QR code, or if it's digital, they can just tap or click the link itself and get there. So that was a way to, and we shortened those URLs so that they weren't giant URLs there. All you needed is mass.gov/accessibility training. You can type it in, you can click it, or you can scan it.
Does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, we're right at time too. Doesn't mean we have to stop. It's 3:30. You've learned
I
a
have a
lot.
question.
some-
Sorry.
All right, burning some glucose.
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead.
So my question is about QR codes. Are QR codes, and maybe I'm just missing it, and then I looked at the one that you had up. Are QR codes accessible, or they're not accessible?
So if you think about the way a QR code is meant to work, you're supposed to scan it with your phone.
Yes.
If you can't see it, then it's pretty hard to aim the camera at it, right? Now,
Okay.
there are apps that do tell you that something's in front of you and that there's a QR code potentially, but folks might not know to scan things. Also, with a QR code, you need to have 2 devices, right? I need a piece of paper and a phone, or I need a screen on my laptop and a phone. And if I'm just on a phone and I only get the QR code, it's not helpful. QR codes are
Okay.
meant for print. So if they're going to provide them, in this case, this is marked as decorative. The screen reader doesn't see it at all, but the screen reader user or a keyboard user has the ability to, or a mobile user has the ability to just tap the link that's next to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. One other question. So if you have, like, I was listening to all that you said in both trainings, and I'm an early childhood education professor. And so I was thinking about, I get that it's different for different programs. There's going to be things that we have in our technical standards that other programs have too. But my question is like, for items that are that we give to our classes, that we post for our classes that are old but good and may not be the way it should be. Is there an easy way, if it's someone else's, we'll cite it correctly, of course, we want to model that. But say it's an article that we really like. Is there a way to fix that that's easy or not so much?
So if
Do you know what I'm
find an
asking?
article that was in the New York Times that's 3 years old, you obviously can't go and make that accessible if the article isn't accessible, right?
Okay,
But if you're pointing to something that isn't accessible and the students are required to use that article for something, as opposed to like, hey, here's some additional supplemental info in the New York Times, where you're requiring it as part of an assignment, then the student is going to need an alternative way to get to that information. So you would have to have an accessible version for them. But yeah, anything that's required for the course is something that you do need to make accessible. But if you're just referencing, hey, here's an article on sound from Sony, and you're talking about these or things like that, then that's not something that you're responsible to make accessible. But if you're making it a part of your curriculum, then the student will need an accessible alternative to that.
so is there an easy way to do that? Do I send that on to my team? Because I've taught, I'm not a native technology person. I'm excellent at my job. But I have some items from my 30 years at Mount Wachusett working in the field that they're timeless. So do I need to retype those and have them made accessible, or is there someone or a way to do that? Is there some kind of mechanism that I can do that within? Do you know what I'm saying? This might happen to a lot of faculty, I'm thinking, in all honesty.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's gonna happen it's happening to all of us. It happens at the state, it's happening in municipalities. There's, this is a lot of new information for folks to digest, to learn how to do, and to do something like, Mindy just had the gall to stand up here and tell you you've been using Word wrong for 30 years. It is definitely a challenging thing, and each organization is going to have to try to figure out some resources for folks. There are vendors out there that can do remediation for you, and it's going to depend on the type of content that you've got there. As far as actually retyping, there may be software that you can use to do that for you, but you might have to go and edit it after, or it might be something of copying and pasting from an old document into a new one. But there's different solutions. I'd recommend bringing a specific example to our office hours for us to take a look at it too. But also, I think there are some groups here with the faculty. I know I'll be back on January 20th, I believe it was, for a faculty development day to talk some more about different topics with accessibility.
Okay.
So I know that there's resources here that they are working on and planning.
Yes, of course.
But I can't
Okay,
speak to that.
thank
You're
you.
gonna want to speak internally there.
I appreciate that, and this was a good training.
Thank you. Sure thing. We got one other question in the chat that I'm not really sure that I understand the full context of, that says, what about asterisks? Can you tell me?
As a special symbol in.
I'm wondering if it's like small text, like you have an asterisk.
Like a footnote?
and
Like a footnote, yeah, as long as you're using the reference tools in Microsoft Word to create your footnotes. It's that will be accessible, the Microsoft so the bottom line with creating an accessible Microsoft Word document is using the tools that they give you for the purpose that they give you it. So use the list tools to make a list. Use the table tool to make a table. Use the insert image tool to make the to get to the alt text and stuff.
Yeah, and to that note, use the footnote tool, the reference tool to make a footnote. If you just type an asterisk mid-sentence, and then you type an asterisk farther down the page, that doesn't connect them in the back end for accessibility or for assistive technology. So, but there is a tool where you can add that. And so Microsoft Word will then link those things so that someone could select that asterisk and jump down to the footnote.
And I will say that if you create your footnotes like that in a Word document, they will export to PDF pretty well. Anything else? That was a great question. Great questions, yeah.
So I know this was about Microsoft,
Mhm.
but I know that.
Are you gonna say Google?
No, I'm gonna say something even worse.
Oh, okay.
Canva.
Canva.
It's not very accessible.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. And they did add that like little accessibility checker.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
doesn't
pretty
work.
skeptical about,
Yeah.
about the readability on a screen.
Yeah, so we've had people bring documents to office hours, PowerPoint slides and flyers that they created with Canva. They said it was great in Canva. The accessibility checker said it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then it exports to PDF and it's all messed up. So we really don't I recommend Canva for like social media images or
Yeah.
creating a graphic for your document or, but I do not recommend using Canva for creating slide decks. I do not recommend Canva for creating accessible documents. Now you can, if you know how to remediate a PDF in Acrobat Pro, feel free to use Canva and make a document. But what I'll tell you to do is strip out all of the stuff that Canva puts into it and you're gonna start from scratch. And you have to build that tags tree on your own, which is a very time consuming.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. There is an alternative called, and again, I'm not endorsing.
We shouldn't be endorsing
I'm
bread,
not
but
endorsing.
there are some
There
alternatives
are
out
some
there that.
alternatives, just do Google Canva alternative accessibility, and I'm sure it will pop up.
Thank you.
But again, if you think about Canva as like a Photoshop or Illustrator where I'm making a graphic and then I'm gonna put that graphic into a document and make the document accessible, totally use it that way. Unfortunately, their PDF export is just not up to snuff at this point.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
At least they're listening. They knew they needed something. So they put something there.
I really want to thank everybody
Yeah,
for
thank
joining
you
us
all.
today. It's been wonderful to have your attention for 7 hours today. Again, we got lots of resources. Please come join us and talk to us more. We look forward to coming back, and thank you all for being here.
So much.
I just do it.
Yeah.